Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I'm Jim, joined by Bob and EJ. And today we are going to be discussing the Washington Commanders and the New York Football Giants. We're going to talk about their schemes and maybe correlating some of our draft grades to those schemes. But before we do that, a little bit of news today. So EJ, what do you think of the Aaron Rodgers signing?
It's okay, I guess. I mean, dude is washed. It's time to hang it up. I mean, he'll bring stability to what they had because they didn't have much in the quarterback room, but I'm not expecting much out of Aaron Rodgers.
Well, that was contrary to we just wrapped up the Steelers Sanctuary podcast, and to say excitement is an understatement.
Really?
I get the idea of Aaron Rodgers being okay. He's over the hill. He's 41 years old, but you have to understand Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best quarterback we've had. Really the last 2 years have been, although I love Ben Roethlisberger, you have to go back to pre-injury Ben Roethlisberger to have this kind of arm talent. The one thing that we all felt was that him coming off that Achilles, it's now 2 years removed, have a little bit more mobility, but the one thing he'll bring is not so much that he throws the ball over the middle of the field, which is sorely lacking in his offense. He brings I walk up to the line, I look at the defense, I know where I'm going with the ball. It's hard to fool me, and I'm 1, 2, 3 steps. I'm getting rid of the ball. I'm decisive with the football. And if that's the middle of the field, so be it. Big knock on Russell Wilson was last year, and there were several games towards the end of the year when he claimed he lost the ability to audible, where you could plainly see Arthur Smith on the sideline mouthing the words, "Throw the fucking ball," because he would just sit there and hold it and hold it and hold it, and it just threw the timing of the routes off to the point where now you can't throw it anywhere but a lob down the field. So is it a sad commentary that he's our best quarterback in 5 years? Yeah, but he's still our best quarterback in 5 years.
You know, and that's the debate that I see. Like, I know that Will's pointing it out in the Draft Professor group chat as well, that it's not like Arthur Smith's offense would know what to do if he had a quarterback that was Aaron Rodgers in his prime, much less Aaron Rodgers at the tail end of his career. But
at 41 years old, Aaron Rodgers is clearly the best quarterback Arthur Smith has ever worked with, even with his diminished skills.
Yep.
That is true.
Yeah. So we are going to dive in to the New York Football Giants. And EJ, how would you describe the Giants' offensive scheme?
It's hard to describe because they were so lacking in talent last season. We all know what happened with Daniel Jones, but they were basically, honestly, it was just them throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what would stick. Like once the Daniel Jones thing happened, they were just trying to keep their heads above water, trying to see what they had. They didn't have much at the quarterback position, and that throws everything off. They didn't have much as far as offensive line goes, and pretty much what they found was Tyrone Tracy can play and Malik Nabers can play. The best I seen from Tyrone Tracy was when they ran outside zone and he hit the cutback lane, because he brings a level of explosiveness to the backfield that Devin Singletary just didn't have. But he was more of explosive. He was one of those guys that can put his foot in the ground and just go upfield. He hit the cutback lanes hard, and he gained a chunk of yardage off those outside zones and hitting the cutback. He's a former wide receiver, so they put him in space, put him out in screens and everything, and he did well in space. He just has that excellent burst. He has that and he has the versatility that they need, so he can wear a lot of hats in their offense. And other than that, it was just force feed Malik Nabers. Find Malik Nabers. He's somewhere down there. They need to find their identity on offense and what exactly they want to do. I would think that going forward, it would be highlighting Tyrone Tracy, highlighting Malik Neighbors, and pretty much just finally getting some type of stability at the quarterback position, but just pretty much just finding your identity. I think they is yet to be determined exactly what they run on offense, and the thing is, we may be talking about this again next year because who knows, this whole staff may be out of here next year.
Don't you think it's interesting, EJ? Because Brian Daboll is traditionally a power run guy, but with the Giants, he works it off of a spread. So, and I guess that's kind of play into Tracy's strengths, being a former wide receiver. I'm not gonna, even though I'm power run, I'm gonna use the spread offense to get as few people in the box as possible to try to push it. And I know people are down on Daboll, and let's face it, if they don't significantly improve, he's probably getting fired. I mean, most realistic NFL organizations don't let a coach for 20 years and not win playoff games and have winning records. So, I don't know. Wan'Dale Robinson to me should be really good, a key piece. And he just hasn't panned out. He's a guy I wish, my team, the Steelers, would trade for, because I think he's a guy who, not that we have quarterbacks who could take advantage of it, but he's a guy who might actually, with Russell Wilson, look pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, he's a short, shifty, quick guy. He works better with a quarterback that's going to get the ball out of. He probably would work well with Aaron Rodgers. Guys going to get the ball out of his hands real quick and let him do damage after the catch. But they got Russell Wilson, so Russell Wilson's going pat the ball, and try to throw it deep. The problem with the Giants offense is like they missed on a lot. Like they missed on Jalen Hyatt. He's a one-trick pony, and it turns out he's not even good at that one trick anymore.
Yeah.
And because he would have been like, if Jalen Hyatt had worked out, he would have been a perfect complement to Malik Neighbors. They would have been bananas together. But right now they just don't have a ton of talent. I like Theo Johnson at tight end coming out of the draft. I think he's going to help them some, but I still don't think they have quite enough. I think they just need more talent on that offensive side of the ball. And pretty much they got to find out whether they got a quarterback or not.
I feel like that guy, a guy I loved in the draft, Thomas Fedone out of Nebraska. Oh, yeah, I think that could turn into a real nice piece for them and a steal in the late rounds.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked him a lot.
Do you think the Giants' passing game would be different whether it's Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart? And I'm trying to think. They have somebody. Oh yeah, they have Winston as well.
Jameis,
right?
Yeah.
Do you think you run the same passing game with all three, or do you think the skill sets of those receivers would change either what the running scheme would be or what the overall offensive passing scheme would be?
This might be a hot take, but I'll be honest with you. If it were me and I was coaching that team, I'd start Jameis. Because Russell Wilson is washed. I mean, we watched it up close. We've seen it now. He hasn't had a good year in 5 years. Russell Wilson, apologists aside, he stands there. He holds the ball. He's a 5'10" quarterback who can't see over his line, who's not as mobile as he used to be. And yes, is he a Hall of Famer? Yes, he was a great player. Joe Montana's a Hall of Famer. I don't want him playing quarterback in 2025. This is a guy he's washed. I would start Jameis. I do not believe in Jackson Dart at all. I think he's a total product of the Lane Kiffin offense. I think a guy like Daboll, if you could let Dart sit for a year, maybe even two, with Brian Daboll, is a guy he could develop into something. But if you throw Jackson Dart out there coming out of the Lane Kiffin Mississippi offense, the Giants will be lucky to win 2 games.
So, EJ, what's your belief in Jackson Dart?
I think, I didn't have a first round grade on him. I think that he's a guy that you get him into your system. He's a guy that has to master the offense before you put him on the field, because he's going to win with his head. He's going to win above the shoulders more than he's going to win with physical ability. He has physical ability, but what's going to carry him throughout his career is how he wins above the shoulders. And coming out of the Lane Kiffin offense, I don't know if starting year one how successful he's going to be. And the thing is, I don't know if that Giants team is ready for Jackson Dart to start, because if you don't have the right people around him, you might break them. Like that's the thing with quarterbacks. You put them in as a rookie, you might break them. You might break them, and their career is done. So if they don't have, they got to make sure that they have the correct offensive line in place. First and foremost, you got to make sure your wide receivers and all that are on the same page. Meaning, if your wide receiver, if the quarterback sees blitz, the wide receiver has to see blitz too and adjust his route accordingly. And the quarterback has to know that the wide receiver is adjusting his route. They have to be on the same page there. If not, there's going to be an interception, and everybody's going to say the quarterback sucks. But all that stuff comes into play. How far along Jackson Dart is with all that, we don't know. We don't know. But as far as they're going to play it different with Russell Wilson, then I agree with Bob that I would play Jameis Winston, because Jameis Winston is going to air it out. He don't care. He's just going to air it out. He's thrown 30 interceptions in the career and still survived. So he's just going to air it out. That would be entertaining. I think if they played Jackson Dart, they would favor the running game a lot more. They would limit his throws. Pretty much do the same thing rookie coaches do with rookies. But with Russell Wilson, I mean, I think he's just a placeholder until they can get the young kid in there. With Russell Wilson, I think they're gonna try to throw the ball a little bit, but I think again they're gonna favor the run game. They're gonna play to Russell Wilson's strength, favor the run game, do some play action, and give him clearly defined reads, so that way you just point and shoot. That way Russell Wilson is not just sitting there behind the line trying to figure everything out.
I'd be interested to hear both your perspectives on this. Do you think Brian Daboll gets desperate enough 3 or 4 games in if they're losing to just throw Dart in and hope he gets another season out of it?
If they go 0-4, yeah. Like if they because he's trying to save his job, so he's going to do anything. He's going to do anything. He's going to, like, once they start really getting behind the 8 ball as far as record wise and all of that, he's just going to throw the kid out there and like, save me, kid.
Yeah.
So, and I had this take before the draft, and it kind of answers this question, Bob. My opinion is that if the Giants owner let Daboll and Shane draft a quarterback, Shane's already getting another year. Unless Daboll loses the locker room. He's getting this season and one more, and here's the reason why. If Daboll's replaced, you just wasted the Jackson Dart pick because you traded up to get a quarterback. You have to let the coach that traded up to get the quarterback. I think if Dart is even remotely ready, he may start week 1. Because you just need to see, here's what I think is that you need to see what you have, because there's a good chance to compete. If you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, you get a window, and there's no reason to waste 4 games.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like,
yeah. And plus, like they're a team. They just need hope. They need because if Jackson Dart can't play, they're back to square one and they're rebuilding.
Yes, and then the second point with the Giants is Daboll took Daniel Jones to the playoffs. Let me repeat that. Daboll took Daniel Jones to the playoffs.
True.
Right?
Very true. Yeah.
Might take Indy to the playoffs.
Right. But my point being is that the Giants aren't as bad, right? Like, so we're about to pivot to the Giants defense. This is the strength of the team, right?
Yeah.
If my hot take is that the Giants finish second in the NFC East, right? Like, that's doable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sold on Dallas, and I know EJ from last week, Dallas has a lot of star power, but is that really a good team?
See, in theory, Jim and EJ, I totally agree with you with the rookie quarterback window. I think the problem is because he came out of that Lane Kiffin system, enough isn't made of the fact he needs a year to learn a real offense. Because I'm not disparaging Lane Kiffin. He's a freaking genius at the college level. He gets guys wide open, but his quarterbacks, I mean, the best quarterback he's ever coached is Matt Barkley. He goes back a lot longer than people think.
Well, and I think like I love seeing the Jackson Dart, like I don't know what it was called, but the Jackson Dart like interview with Dable during the draft process. I love seeing that because if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't seen how a coach interviews a quarterback, go look up how Dable interviewed Dart. And then ask yourself why, let's say, you pass on Shedeur Sanders. If you can't answer those questions about how to install an offense, the coach is just not going to get along with you, and it's just not a good recipe.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, and that's part of the reason why the story came out that Brian Dable was out on Shedeur Sanders, because they gave Shedeur that same install work. And Shedeur couldn't answer those questions. And Brian Dable straight called him out, was like, you didn't do the homework, did you? And word is Shedeur didn't like that. And they didn't get along right off the bat.
And one of the things that Brandon Beane was actually answering, so they asked Brandon Beane some questions on Shedeur Sanders, right, in this draft cycle. And obviously Buffalo wasn't in the market for a quarterback. But if you watch the interviews, he actually referenced when they were drafting Josh Allen, and they said they had to standardize the interview for every quarterback that year that they drafted Josh, meaning that, and Joe Shane was part of that process, right? Joe Shane and Brian Dable came out of Buffalo.
Yeah.
But the idea is you want to see how every quarterback handles the same install. Like, are they grasping things quick enough that you know that they'll eventually get the terminology of the offense and be able to handle an install and do various things. But we have spent a lot of time on Jackson Dart. We have spent a lot of time in the Giants offense. Bob, how would you describe the Giants defensive scheme?
By far the best part of the team. So the Giants, they're an interesting defense because they present multiple fronts. They run cover three almost exclusively. They're a zone coverage team, but what they do is very interesting. They play a lot of 5-man fronts, which you don't see a lot in the NFL. But you take advantage of Thibodeau and Brian Burns, and then you got Dexter in the middle, who maybe is the best interior defensive lineman at this point. Maybe not for his career, but at this point, maybe the best interior defensive lineman. And then you take a guy like Darius Alexander, who I thought had a lot of upside in the draft. And now you're getting two bulls in there as far as I'm concerned. And it's going to free up those edge rushers even more. The Giants front seven is really, really good. They could work a little bit on their coverage. I don't necessarily love their secondary. But the cover three, you don't have to be great as a cover guy in the cover three. The defense kind of does the work to you. That being said, a good quarterback's going to pick it apart because they know where the holes are. And you need more talented secondary people. And I think that's something they need to work on. But now you got to have Jewel Carter. They are so loaded up front. It is crazy. I mean, I would not want to face them if I'm Dak Prescott, if I'm Jaden Daniels. Even Jalen Hurts, I don't want, even with that line, I don't want to face those guys. And if I do, I want to run the ball or get the ball out of my hands immediately.
Yeah, so EJ, how do you see the Giants defense?
Yeah, similar. I like the talent that they've collected on this team. What it was is last year, Shane Bowen, the new defensive coordinator, last year was his first year. So in 2023, they had Wink Martindale. Wink Martindale and Shane Bowen are like on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as calling defense. Wink Martindale is balls to the wall. I want to attack. I want to blitz. I want to get after you. Attack. Shane Bowen is the opposite. We're going to sit back, read and react. Let's be disciplined. And, let's not attack. Let's just defend, bend, but don't break. So last year was a transition year, and Shane Bowen tried to, with a lot of the cover three, I could tell he didn't want to play a whole bunch of that cover three, like cover three, cover one. He didn't want to play it, but he was adjusting his scheme to the talent that he had, because most of those guys were used to playing man coverage. So he played a lot of cover three just to make it work with his players. But traditionally what Shane Vaughn wants to do. He wants to be more of a zone guy. He wants to be more of a too high guy, cover 4, cover 6 type of thing. Now, with the coverage like that, the addition of Paulson Adebo, and hopefully Deonte Banks takes another step forward. Now, he had questions about his effort. They questioned his effort, so you don't know what's going to happen with that. I like the safety tandem they have, Tyler Nubin and Javon Holland. I like that tandem a lot. That could be very good going forward. And their defense, I mean, the front is just really good. I mean, you got Abdul Carter, you got Dexter, like, because you think most teams they play a base odd front. They do a 5-man front with your nose tackle, your 2 defensive ends, and your outside linebackers as pass rushers. In nickel situations, they play, a regular 4-man front. Now you think of Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Darius Alexander, and Abdul Carter coming after you on 3rd and 10. That's a nightmare. That's a nightmare for anybody. So they have that at their disposal, and they have Kayvon Thibodeau as well in that rotation. So they are low. They can get after the passer. They were, even with their struggles last year, they were a top 10 defense in sacks. They were low on pressures, but they were top in sacks. So those guys can get after it. I think it's just going to be in year 2. I think they're going to take a step forward. I think they have a little bit more personnel to run what Shane Vaughn wants to run. So I think they're going to be much better on defense.
Yeah, the Giants are an interesting team because defense, if Tyrone Tracy takes a step, I don't love Cam Scatterbo. I know a lot of people do. Yeah. I don't. I mean, he's a fullback. I mean, I loved Larry Zonka back in the 70s. I don't want him in 2025. And that's Cam Scatterbo to me is Larry Zonka, John Riggins, maybe even less than that. Like, what was the guy? Mike Allstott type of guy. I mean, I don't think he fits today's football. And I always worry about a guy who made his reputation as a physical runner in college, translating physical to the NFL. He's not very fast.
No,
I don't think he's particularly strong. I just think he was strong against the competition. So I'd be interested. Defense and running game can win a lot of games in the NFL.
With Cam Scatterbo, it's people get like a little hype train with guys in the draft process. Yeah. That's what happened with Cam Scatterbo. It's fun to watch him breaking tackles with poor tacklers. But he's a borderline NFL athlete, but I'm not expecting him to be any type of starter. I'm expecting him to be some type of rotation guy to get like 3 to 5 or 10 at the most snaps per game.
He's like a 3rd and 1 guy.
Yeah, he could try to be a 3rd and 1 guy or a short yardage guy, or he could be, he could be a 4-minute guy. Like if the Giants is up by 20 and it's 4 minutes left in the 4th quarter, just give it to Cam and let him run out the clock. Right. That type of thing. Yeah, and I don't see him running over guys like he did in college. I don't see him running over guys in the NFL because you look at the tackles he broke in college, and some practice squad player would take his head off if they hit him, because he was taking those hits square. He was taking them right on the chin. That's going to get you a concussion in the league, or that's going to get you hurt. So I mean, he's okay. He's fine for what he was. He was a good story, and go Cam and all that. But he's a backup guy. He's a backup. But I mean, he'll serve as a good counterpunch to what Tyrone Tracy brings to the table.
Yeah, totally agree.
And ultimately, like, Singletary is still in New York, right?
Yeah.
So Singletary and Tracy are an effective backfield. You're just adding a guy, but I don't see Scatterbo being above the depth chart. I mean, Daboll had Singletary in Buffalo, right? So like that's the coach has a player where he knows what he can run with that player, and while Singletary, he doesn't have breakaway speed. You're not getting big plays, but the offense can stay on schedule with him. Right. And ultimately, if you're dealing with a rookie quarterback, you want to avoid 2nd and long, 3rd and long.
Oh, yeah.
And Devin Singletary is a running back that will help
Mm-hmm.
that, be 2nd and 8, be 3rd and 5 type situations.
Yep.
I agree, Jim, but you take Scatterbo in the 4th round. I mean, it's kind of a reach for a guy who you're thinking is maybe 3rd or maybe even a practice squad guy.
Well, I would doubt he's practice squad, right? But ultimately, you need running backs. Like the likelihood, did Barkley play all 17 games, EJ, for Philadelphia?
Yeah, he did.
Right? The likelihood, like I would put money that Barkley doesn't play 17 games this year.
No.
The likelihood of any running back play 17 games is really low.
Yeah.
So you need more in the stable. And if they know they're moving on from Singletary at the end of the season, you just my draft philosophy is you always draft a running back every year. You draft a running back, even if it's round 7, because you don't want to give too many second contracts to running backs.
Mm.
It's bad use of resources unless you're the Super Bowl champion. Right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of thing. But why don't we pivot to the Commanders scheme?
Okay.
And Bob, how would you describe the Commanders' offensive scheme?
Jaden Daniels left, Jaden Daniels right. And what else do you need? They're actually Cliff Kingsbury's undergone kind of a radical transformation. He still runs a lot of that wide zone concept in the running game, but he went from almost exclusively shotgun with Kyler Murray to he's got a lot of under center plays for Jaden Daniels. And I think that shows real growth from him as a play caller and is adopting. And I think that's why him and Jaden Daniels clicked so well. I almost hope for his sake, because I didn't think he was a particularly good head coach. I think he has the potential to be a great coordinator. And Jaden Daniels is going to make him look like a great coordinator. Let's be clear. But I think the ability the way those two clicked and worked together and kind of, okay, let's adjust on the fly. Hey, this ain't working. This is working. The NFL Films clip where he came off the field and he was like, hey, next time throw it here because it's going to be open, and it was open. So I think it's interesting how much and the temptation with a guy like Daniels is to run a ton of RPOs. I think he did a really good job of balancing that. And I like their passing game. I'm not 100% sold on Jalen Lane, but they got him in kind of the mid rounds. I mean, this Terry McLaurin news is really scary that they can't come to terms, although we talked about it on our podcast earlier. We think there's an air of maybe they're floating that Steelers trade rumor out there like the 49ers floated the Ayuk trade rumor to kind of pressure him last minute to sign. Hopefully the Steelers don't fall for it and play along, but I think ultimately they will get a deal done because honestly, even if Lane is the real deal, it's kind of Terry McLaurin and old man Zach Ertz, and that's about it.
That's it.
Yeah. So EJ, what do you see as far as the Commanders' offensive scheme?
It's the Jaden Daniels show. Cliff Kingsbury, when you watch Cliff Kingsbury at Arizona, it was a whole bunch of air raid stuff. And he's grown from that. And it's good to see coaches evolve in that way. He's grown from that air raid stuff, that split everybody out wide, just throw the ball all crazy. But yeah, it got a little bit more conservative, more traditional. And part of that is because of the work ethic of Jaden Daniels. He's a guy that showed that he's a student of the game. He can sit back and read a defense and know where the ball is going. Even in his rookie year, he had to use his legs a ton. He got him out of a lot of bad plays. And that's another thing with Jaden Daniels. He's going to get Cliff Kingsbury out of a lot of bad plays just using his athleticism alone. But when you have, I think they got Deebo Samuel to be that type of check down, that type of middle of the field guy, to where Jaden Daniels can get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker. I expect a lot more shot plays to Terry McLaurin. They'd be fools if they let him walk, or if they even let him be disgruntled with his contract. They should just pay the man. Like you're a team that's on the come up. You're a team that's getting better, and he's one of your core players. And from all the people around that organization, all they say is he's the model type of guy that you want on your team. Just pay him. They just need to pay him. Like what they're doing is real Dan Snyder energy, and they don't need that. They don't need that anywhere.
The only thing I'd push back on, and from an understanding standpoint of what the organization's doing, although I agree, I would pay him, but he is going to be 30 during the season. So wide receiver typically doesn't age well. He's put up great numbers with
a lot
of bad quarterbacks. This is Daniel's best weapon by far. Why I don't get why you would risk it. Throw him a 3-year deal at $100 million and call it a day.
Yeah, give him a 3-year deal. Yep. And the thing is, if you want to play it that way, you better have a better option waiting in the wings, which they don't right now. But they're gonna have to add somebody.
I think they're gonna find it. And look, Debo 5 years ago, although really when you look at his career. Excuse me, he had one great season. San Francisco really hurt Debo with all the running and gadget stuff.
Yeah. I
don't think he's the receiver people think he is at this point.
No, not
and I like Debo. I hope he has a renaissance with Kingsbury, but I have a sneaking feeling he's washed.
Yeah, Debo's a zone receiver. Like we saw that in the Super Bowl that the Niners played in. He couldn't get off of press coverage. He can't be man coverage. So you got to let him be in the zone, and you got to just let him get in space and feed him the ball in space.
Yeah. So I'm starting him against the Giants in fantasy.
Yeah.
So when you have a quarterback on the rookie deal, you need to make sure you surround him with weapons. So I applaud the Commanders. Debo and McLaurin paired together are better than what the Commanders had last year, right? Sure. It's an upgrade. And, you see this with plenty of teams where, the Texans did it with Stroud, where they made sure they got guys around him. And they may have not been they're not necessarily all pro wide receivers, until they traded for Diggs. Stroud didn't necessarily have somebody that you would have considered an all pro, right? Yeah. You just need to give that young quarterback something. And then, Bob, to your point, you draft Lane. You have to draft a receiver every year, hoping that one of them emerges as, you could call it a go-to receiver, featured receiver. Now, I don't think any Bills fan saw Khalil Shakir being the featured receiver when he was drafted 4 years ago.
Right.
Right. Like, it was a 5th round pick. And realistically, he catches almost all of his passes within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage. Right. So I like what the Commanders are doing to surround Daniels, and you just have to keep evolving the offense and wait your turn to grab a wide receiver, because I actually like what the Commanders did more on the offensive line side.
That's what they needed.
Yeah. Because to me, it's more important to build the offensive line than the skill positions.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, right. You gotta protect your quarterback, because that's what happened with CJ Stroud. They had a dip in their offensive line play, and that coincided with the dip in CJ Stroud's play this past season. So, but yeah, with Washington, they definitely needed that. Like the Laramie Tunsil trade, that was good for them. That was really good for them. They needed to solidify that tackle position, and Sammy Cosmi coming back healthy. That's going to be huge for them.
Yeah, and Josh Connolly's a nice guy to kind of bookend with Tunsil. That being said, I think the Diggs thing in Houston really didn't work. It kind of, and I think the offensive line play for Stroud was a big part of it, but I also think that Diggs didn't fit in there. And I'd kind of disagree with an all-pro receiver, because I think Nico Collins is awesome. I mean, if you get a guy like that as the second guy, I know they were hoping Diggs would be that guy, and unfortunately Tank Dell had the injury. It looked like he was really emerging and probably won't play this year. So I don't know. I think I would rather go younger. It's hard to say. I mean, not having a 3rd round pick, I think they could have maybe gotten a better receiver there. When we talk about defense in a minute, I think they got one of the steals of the draft, frankly, on defense. But I would have brought a guy like Keenan Allen in over Deebo Samuel. I think Amari Cooper's lost a step, but there are some guys I think I would have rather have gone and got than Deebo Samuel.
That's true. But you know what? Keep an eye out for Luke McCaffrey. I think he's as a slot player. I think he can do some damage.
Yeah, he could easily. He's very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's pivot to the Commanders' defense. So I really like the Commanders' 2024 draft, and I just want to remind everybody this is 2025. Mm-hmm. So their draft 2 years ago, when the new GM was, I believe it's Adam Peters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Came in, like taking Jerzon Newton, even though they were theoretically set at defensive tackle, but Newton was BPA in round 2, right? Yeah. So I like what the Commanders are doing on defense. Definitely, they are. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we talked about last night on the Draft Professor podcast was if you have 6 draft picks and you draft 3 offense, 3 defense, the draft is biased to the offense. And the reason is if you have an offensive contributor, at least 6 players on offense play 100% of the snaps. Your 5 offensive linemen and your quarterback don't come off the field. Mm-hmm. So very rarely will you see a team, like if a team drafts, like if you have 6 picks and you do 4 offense and 2 defense, that is so tilted to offense from the standpoint of like you have Josh Connerly for the Commanders. You're basically trying to get a franchise tackle that's going to be at that spot for 10 or 15 years, but then you won't have to draft another tackle for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a lot of times when you're drafting on offense, you're drafting a cornerstone unless it's a role player later in the draft. So going back to the Commanders defense, getting guys like Trey Amos, Kane Medrano, those would be great examples. And then the previous year, they got Jerzon Newton, as well as Jaden Daniels. But I like the draft that they're building. But EJ, how would you describe the Commanders' defensive scheme?
Defensive scheme, they under Joe Witt, he coached under Dan Quinn back when they were at Dallas. He was the secondaries coach. What he typically wants to do, he's another one of those cover 1, cover 3 guys. He wants to play single high, middle of field, close coverage. But he another one he had to adjust to. This was his first year last year, so he had to adjust to what the talent they had. So they wanted to play man coverage. They wanted to play like leave the corners on the island, have a single high defense, but they didn't have the corners for that. They kept getting beat down. They got Marsh. That's why they traded for Marshawn Lattimore. They want to play that way. They want to be like last season. They were like up on the front side. They were a little light. And it was evidence with the 2 Eagles games. They couldn't stop the run. Part of their moves this offseason was in direct response to getting beat in against the run like that. That's where they Javon Kinlaw, that's where they brought him in at. They're gonna play him at edge they're gonna play him at edge on early downs. They're gonna kick him inside on pass rushing situations. And that's strictly because they want a bigger body out there on first and second down to help stop the run. As far as in the secondary, they got Marshawn Lattimore coming back. Hopefully he's healthy. He should be able to play some man coverage. They still have Mike Samra still out on the outside. I mean, I swore he was a slot player, which he ultimately maybe in later on in his career, maybe he will be, but they still got him on the outside and he's surviving out there. So they're leaving him out there as their nickel back. They signed Jonathan Jones, but they have better players to play single high defenses right now. Quan Martin, who I loved coming out of the draft, he has excellent range for a deep safety. He has excellent range. He's tackled and he's got good ball skills. And that's another thing that Joe Witt is harping on this year. He said they dropped 16 interceptions last season. I mean, and he dropped 16 interceptions and they went to the NFC Championship game. So that's a big turnaround right there that could have happened. But Joe Witt, he likes players. When you look at the players he had in Dallas, Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, they all had a ton of interceptions. That's what he wants from this secondary now. He wants more, game-changing plays. He wants more turnovers, more interceptions. Up front, they want to get bigger. They want to be able to hold up better against the run. That's part of the reason Kane Medrano, a linebacker from UCLA, they drafted in the 6th round. They have a plan for him. They want him to be that type of back in Dallas, they had like a 3 safety lineup. It was what was his name? J-Ron Curse, I believe. I forget what his name is, but he was a big safety. They played a 3 safety defense, big nickel. They want to make Kane Medrano that type of player, like a hybrid linebacker, hybrid safety type of guy. That's the plan that they have for him. But their whole idea up front is get bigger, get stronger, be more stout against the run. And then from that, they can play the coverage on the back end, what they want to do. As far as the pass rush, I think they got by. It wasn't that great with their pass rush, but they got by with blitzes. They got by with stunts up front. You run games up front. If you can't get pressure naturally, so you have to manufacture it. So that's what they did last season, manufacturing a pass rush. It didn't have a whole lot of talent up front. They have a little bit more talent up front, so hopefully they won't have to blitz as much anymore. But that's they want to get after the passer. They want to be bigger and stronger up front, and they want to have the guys that can play man coverage on the back end.
Yeah, and I really think that with Trey Amos, look, if Lattimore's healthy, he's a Pro Bowl, borderline all pro level cornerback. But he's getting a little long in the tooth. I think Trey Amos, I thought coming out was the most polished boundary corner in the draft. I think he's an instant starter coming into the league. He probably is a high-end cornerback too his rookie year, but I see him as a high-end cornerback one. Maybe not top 10, but definitely top 15 type of guy. And now you've got, if he's healthy, you've got Lattimore and Amos who can play that press coverage. And now I do think he kicks Shane Restell inside wedge. I agree with you. I saw him as a slot player. Now you've got 3 guys who could play press coverage, and Dan Quinn can have a field day and just say, hey, blitz the hell out of them.
Yep.
Because we got the guys who can play the man coverage to support the blitz. So their defense is a work in progress, but I believe a lot in Dan Quinn. I think he's an excellent coach who is an excellent defensive coordinator who knows how to coach his coaches, which is a thing that I really appreciate, is a guy who knows how to develop the people under him to coach his system and then improve his system. So, yeah, I'm excited about Washington. I really think they're a team on the come up, and the Eagles need to really watch out for it. I could see that is a NFC Championship game for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I see that as the main fight for the division between Washington and Philly. I see that being those 2 teams for like the next couple of years because they're both young teams.
Yep. And Bob, I want to emphasize something that you just said. A coach needs to develop their coaches, and that doesn't get talked about enough. Because if you are a good coordinator, you're never a good coordinator for very long.
Right.
Like Joe Brady for Buffalo had 1 full season as offensive coordinator, and he was interviewed for multiple head coaches. Brian Dable had 1 good season as an offensive coordinator with Josh Allen, and he got head coaching interviews, returned for a season, then became a head coach after his 2nd full season with Josh Allen, right? You're never a good coordinator for long. So the reason that that's important is to emphasize you have to grow your coaches. Yeah. Because if Kingsbury is setting the world on fire as an offensive coordinator, he is going to get another head coaching shot. Whether we think he's a better coordinator than head coach, he's not going to be a good offensive coordinator for Washington for long.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get another shot, and then he may have to go the Norv Turner route where it becomes everybody's favorite offensive coordinator to hire.
Yeah.
But,
like a Chan Gailey,
yes.
Norv Turner. I mean, there's some guys who are just frankly better coordinators. A guy like Vic Fangio, who's a genius on defense, not a great head coach.
Yeah, he's not a head coach.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of you got to find your niche. But that being said, yeah, Jim, I can't agree enough that some coaches are really good at it. You know who's one of the best at it? Who people look back and they think, the guy was a loser. He didn't win playoff games. Marty Schottenheimer was maybe the best coach of coaches post 1980. There were some real geniuses in the 70s and 60s who developed coaches like, Landry, Paul Brown, guys like that who were just amazing coaching. But now you look at guys, like a guy like Schottenheimer, guys like Mike Holmgren, and that's kind of led Sean McVay, even though, he's young, but he's got an impressive coaching tree already. And I do believe Dan Quinn is that kind of coach. I think he's great at coaching.
Yeah. And I can tell you another coach who's not good at it, Doug Peterson. That's been one of the knocks on him. He won the Super Bowl in 2017 with the Eagles. After that year, he lost his coordinator, so he had to bring in new guys. That's part of the reason why the team went downhill after that. He didn't coach his coaches well. His message wasn't getting across.
Right.
It got so bad to the point where some of his staff were getting into literal fights with players, and nobody was there to regulate it. Nobody was there to stop it. So that's been one of the knocks. That's one of the reasons why Doug doesn't last very long where he goes. He doesn't coach his coaches very well. Doug Peterson is an excellent head coach, but if the people under him are not as good, and they're not conveying his message, so that's why ultimately he runs out of time wherever he goes.
Right.
And I'll tell you another guy who's really bad at it, Mike Tomlin.
Yes.
Maybe the worst coach of coaches that I've ever seen.
And one of the things, I believe they're going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow night on the quarterback show. When they're done doing the quarterbacks, they're going to start talking about like which NFL assistant coaches are going to be like the next hot commodity. But I think Andy Reid obviously should get credit for being very successful in both Philadelphia and Kansas City. He's done it with several different coordinators.
Yeah.
Right. Because at one point he had Eric Bieniemy. Bieniemy left. Now we know that Reid is calling the plays, but there is way more to being a coordinator than calling plays. Right. There's a lot of, you have to put a game plan together, which includes calling plays, which set up other plays. And you have to be able to teach your offensive line how you want them to block something up, or the receivers coach about how you want the routes being run, et cetera. Right.
Yeah.
So Andy Reid has grown a significant number of coaches. We see that. I would also say, like, if you had to compare the Bills, Bill Parcells to Bill Belichick, while Belichick may have more rings, Parcells' next level down coaches have more rings than Belichick's next level down. Right. Sean Payton, Belichick are under Parcells, right?
Tom Coughlin.
Yes. Thank you. I knew there was another and I couldn't remember who it was. So look at that, because again, like Sean McDermott is on defensive coordinator 3. He's on offensive coordinator 4. Right. And I believe McDermott's only been coach in Buffalo, like I think it's either 8 or 9 seasons. Right. He has to constantly replace, because like Ken Dorsey gets hired. Right. And then before Dorsey, Dable got hired, then Dorsey got hired, and then Brady's about to go get hired away. You have to have a stable of coaches coming up. You have to be able to teach them how you want your building to function.
Yep. And you gotta be able to identify who has the coaching talent. That's why I say, like, Andy Reid, he's so great at this, because he identifies these guys as players. Like Doug Peterson was a quarterback for Andy Reid, and he made him into a coach. Mike Kafka was a quarterback for Andy Reid, drafted Mike Kafka and turned him into a coach. Like, you got to have the eye for it and all of that. You got to know who's a leader of men and who knows their X's and O's and all of that. So that, a coach is only as good as his staff. If you can be the best head coach in the world, if you don't got the people under you, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, and Reed's great at identifying and coaching coaches, and he gets people jobs, just like Belichick got. He got a lot of people jobs. Okay, they didn't turn out. Andy Reid's coaching tree, while it's prolific, isn't necessarily proficient when they leave him. That's why, look at like Mike Shanahan and then Kyle Shanahan and and then McVay. I see those guys having a lot more success with the guys they're putting out, and maybe it's because it's more the modern game is so geared towards offense. The defensive guys, you look back at a guy like Cowher who produced so many head coaches and so many good coordinators. Dom Capers, LeBeau was a Hall of Fame coordinator. He wasn't a great head coach. Chan Gailey, Ken Wisenhunt, those guys he produced, and Bruce Arians. But at the same time, it's kind of the same thing. I'm great at getting guys jobs. I'm great at developing. But then, hey, what do they go do with it? When they get there. And that's not necessarily a knock on the guy who grew the tree. It's just, hey, I'm so good at making my coaches look good, which I think is a part of the job. You should be wanting to make your personnel look great, because then people want to work for you. You know how these guys replenish those trees? It's because everybody thinks if I go work for that guy, I'm going to get a job.
Exactly.
Yep. So why don't we pause for a moment and let's give a quick commercial. EJ, do you want to tell? We have a lot of people listening and watching.
Awesome.
You want to tell everybody who you are and how they can find all of your other content?
Hello, everybody. My name is EJ Holt. You can see my Twitter handle right there in the bottom corner of the screen. You can find me on X. I do a lot of film breakdowns. Pretty much I'm doing 2026 prospects right now. I do all the film breakdowns. I do some NFL stuff. I do mostly college NFL prospects. But pretty much I don't do hot takes. I don't do clickbait. Pretty much just I analyze the film and I tell you what I think. But if that's your type of thing, give me a follow.
Cool. Bob?
Steelers Sanctuary podcast. We're growing leaps and bounds. We just picked up a sponsor with big news today with Aaron Rodgers. Check us out on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're on X. We also have our website, SteelersSanctuary.com, where we put out articles. We have a lot of fun talking Pittsburgh Steelers football. It is not a sunshine and rainbows podcast. I will warn you up front. That being said, we do like to have fun. So, yeah, check us out. We'd be happy to have you.
Cool. And not a lot of sunshine today. Like, I was driving from Michigan to Cincinnati. We didn't see a lot of sun. You can follow the channel at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. It is the same on X and YouTube. What you will get, daily draft content. So Thursday nights is Bob and EJ. Last night, Josh and Owen. And Josh and Owen are doing something very similar to what Bob and EJ are. And that's basically going to cover all 32 teams. By the end of July, we will have covered every NFL team, what their schemes are, and maybe some of the players that they've drafted to fit the schemes. Mondays and Tuesdays, the daily content is we're deep diving a specific college. So this week we did Clemson and Penn State. And I urge you to go back and check those out because each of those schools has a quarterback, and we started talking about them. Tomorrow, they're breaking down 5 quarterbacks in the draft. Well, I think it's at 8 p.m. I'm actually going to be on an airplane, so I am not the host. So whatever time Randall decides to start the podcast, there's going to be at least 4 draft professors who are breaking down some of the quarterbacks. And every Friday, that's going to repeat. So we have 30 quarterbacks that we had to break down. We're doing 5 per podcast, right? And we're basically saying, here's where they are on the board entering the college football season. Do we see them as a day 3, a day 2, day 1? Like, where are they now type thing? So if you're a Steelers fan and you think you want to draft a quarterback, I would start to strongly suggest start watching Draft Professor more. We're going to be covering quarterbacks a lot.
Well, now that we have Aaron Rodgers, we'll be drafting late in the first round.
So
we hope.
Yeah. So we have daily draft content, and we have 80 people that are bringing it to you. So Bob and EJ are among 80 people that help Draft Professor produce podcasts. So once October hits, you are going to be seeing 2 podcasts a day on the draft. And we're basically going to take every position in the draft, and we are going to break down it's probably going to be close to 400 players. Right. So, we'll be breaking down like the top 32 running backs. We'll be breaking down like the top 80 defensive linemen, the top 80 offensive linemen, the top 64 receivers, top 64 corners. So if your team drafts a player, there's a good chance that this channel covered them at least twice, because there's 2 groups doing corners, 2 groups doing defensive line. So even that 7th round pick that your team drafted, there was a good chance that 7th round pick got covered twice, at minimum of twice on this podcast. And if they're a Senior Bowl player, they're going to be covered more, that type of thing. So daily draft content, and we have a couple of really big shows coming your way in August. But follow NFL Draft Fanatic, and you'll learn more about it on Twitter. I could talk about everything that we're going to do, or you can just watch every podcast, and it's probably going to save me a lot of bread. Kind of thing. So, EJ, anything as you look at the NFC East and you look at the Commanders, the Cowboys, and the Giants, who do you think is the closest contender to the Eagles?
I say the Commanders. They seem to be the most complete team as far as offense and defense. They're not learning a new scheme anymore. They're coming in, they're building on the foundation that they already built on top of, and they have a dynamic player at quarterback. When you look at, honestly, I would say Jayden Daniels is the most dynamic quarterback in the division. As far as athleticism and on the field talent and mobility and everything like that. And I think they have a good coach. I think they have a solid foundation to build off of and to make themselves a perennial contender.
And Bob, if you had to rank the 4 quarterbacks in the NFC East,
Jayden Daniels 1. I'd say Jalen Hurts 2, Dak Prescott 8th, and whoever's playing quarterback for the Giants 15th. I'll be honest, Jayden Daniels, when I evaluated 2024, I beat the drum saying this guy he's the real deal. He's the best quarterback in the draft. I was not a fan of Caleb Williams. I'm still not really a fan of Caleb Williams. I loved Jayden Daniels. I think he's special. I think we're talking about him not next year, but the year after. I think he passes Josh Allen. I think he passes Lamar Jackson. I think it's him and Patrick Mahomes 1-1A. And if Daniels can get to the Super Bowl and win it, he might be the best quarterback in the league. And that's no slight on Mahomes. Mahomes has been great for a long time, but he's going to be entering his 30s now. So I think Daniels could pass him. I think that highly of Jayden Daniels. I think he's a special, phenomenal talent who is also a phenomenal leader who lifts his team up. And I don't think that's a knock on Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those other guys that Jayden Daniels passes them. I just think he's that good.
Yeah, very true. He does have the talent to be that type of top tier quarterback. Like, because when I started watching Jayden Daniels back at Arizona State, he was this skinny kid and was running all around, didn't know what he was doing. I'm like, oh, this kid can't play. And fast forward to his LSU years, I'm like, okay, he's got a little bit better. Okay, I got to take him seriously as a draft prospect now. So I started out having him as like a 3rd round prospect. Then he kept winning. He kept playing good. I'm like, I got to put this dude in the 1st round. And then I like, oh, I gotta put this dude as a top 5 player. I mean, I had him as QB3. I liked Caleb Williams. I had Drake May over him. I like Caleb Williams, the player. I didn't like what Lincoln Riley did with him, and I don't like what they're doing with him with Chicago. Hopefully they do better now. But you can't deny the talent, the dual threat ability that Jaden Daniels has. He has the ability to beat you either way. Because I mean, the stories come out about him showing up at the facility at 4:00 in the morning, watching tape and all that. If he has that type of work ethic, it's just a matter of time before he's the best in the league. So
one thing I love about him is I feel like I don't always feel like Lamar is comfortable in the pocket. I think he's tremendously improved in the pocket. Mm-hmm. I see Daniels as a pocket passer who can run.
Yeah.
Not a running quarterback who throws the ball. I really feel like and I think has good field vision. I think he can really sit there and pick apart a defense and throw the ball on time. Which is one of the things I loved about him. And from a leadership standpoint, some guys just have it. Mahomes had it.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a not top tier guy. I think Drake May has tremendous physical tools. Not 100% sold he has it, but he showed me a lot in New England on a very bad team this year. The thing about Caleb is I feel like the thing I don't like about him, I feel like he's making it up as he goes along. He's freelancing way too much.
Yep.
And part of that's coaching. I think I agree with you there, EJ, that Lincoln Riley didn't do a great job.
Nope.
We'll see what Ben Johnson does with him.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't think he's going to be a great head coach. I think Aaron Glenn is going to be a tremendous head coach.
He acts like a head coach. Aaron Glenn, he's good. You know what Aaron Glenn is doing? He's setting a culture. That's what I look for in coaches in year one. Do you set a culture? Does the team take on your identity in year one? Because that's the one thing you can do in 1 year. You can set your culture in 1 year. You can lay down a law and say, this is how we do it. I think I see Aaron Glenn doing that. I like the fact that he's doing that. Ben Johnson. You know what he needs? He's going to need a strong defensive coordinator because he's going to make his mistakes on offense, but he needs a strong defensive coordinator and maybe possibly a veteran defensive coordinator to say, okay, we're just going to get the ball back to you. Try it again. That's what he needs. I think because he'll figure some things out on offense, I believe. But as far as Caleb Williams, he's been playing sandlot football for far too long. Because when I scouted him with Lincoln Riley was running 4 verts with a 3-step drop with Caleb Williams. I'm like, that'll never work. You're asking him to run around and play sandlot football. But if anybody can reel him in, it's going to have to be Ben Johnson, or else a lot of people are going to get fired, and Caleb Williams is going to have a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So, and by the way, about Ben Johnson, just real quick, Jim, sorry to cut you off. I think he's a tremendous coordinator. I think he's borderline offensive, guru genius type. I don't know that he has the same force of personality as like a McVay or the quiet calm of a Kevin O'Connell. He could prove me wrong, but Aaron Glenn is just special. I mean, I just feel like that's the guy. I mean, defensive coach who was smart enough to immediately go get Ben Johnson's underboss, basically, as offensive coordinator, and say, and I think he's going to be confident in his skin. Frankly, when everybody was so down on Shador because, Deion will bring baggage. If Deion Sanders was the next head coach of the Steelers or any professional football team, you should rejoice. And I'll tell you why. Deion Sanders is a CEO, and Aaron Glenn strikes me as a CEO. I'm going to get the best people to work for me, and I'm going to let them do their job. I might get the credit. I might stand up at the press conference and look good, but I'm going to let my guys do their job and do their work.
Yep.
So I like the CEO coach. Now, the one thing that's going to fail a CEO coach, and it goes back to shower curtain. So first of all, shower curtain, I love I don't know if that's supposed to be Sasquatch or one of the gorillas from I'm already forgetting the name.
Sanctuary guy right here, shower curtain. We love this.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name. Planet of the Apes. I don't know if that's supposed to be something Planet of the Apes or Sasquatch, but the fact that we're in a cowboy hat, like I love the avatar. But going back to Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, they're going to be failed. Like Ryan Poles, how do you fail that many times and still have a job? Right? Like the fact that Aaron Glenn came in at the same time as a new GM is more likely why Aaron Glenn would succeed, other than the fact that the Jets have the worst quarterback situation in that division.
Mm-hmm.
And it would take the Jets 3 years to get a better quarterback situation, in my opinion, than even Miami with Tua. And I don't think very highly of Tua. Right. But I have to give Miami at least enough credit because Tua has led the league in passing and has led Miami to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to at least give Tua that. But that's where I see, like on this, Aaron Glenn and the Jets, what I like is that the GM and the head coach started together. The fact that Ben Johnson is with a GM that what was Poles there before Fields?
Yeah, I'm about to say you don't want to do this. Yeah.
So failed with Trubisky, failed with Fields,
mm-hmm.
and now he's getting a third shot.
Yeah, and the fact that he set Justin Fields up to fail because when they drafted him, the year later they fired the coaching staff and brought in a new staff. So like you're making a toxic environment for your quarterback.
Yep. By the way, about the Jets quarterback situation, let me tell you something. If Justin Fields is ever going to make it in the league, and I think he will, this is the coaching staff for him. The Detroit Lions coaching staff love Justin Fields. They made no secret of it with the division. They all said it. Head coach on down. Everybody loved Justin Fields. So now he went to a team that desperately wanted him. Mm-hmm. Aaron Glenn wanted Justin Fields. The Jets want Justin Fields. He's got his college receiver, Garrett Williams. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line still isn't that great, but Justin Fields can make up for that. So if it's ever going to work for him in the NFL, it's going to be here. And I hope it does. I love Justin Fields. I think he's a good kid.
Yeah.
Yep. So I also want to give a shout out. Happy birthday to my mom. I think it's 83 years young.
Oh,
I gotta do that. I gotta do that in a podcast. I'm actually flying out to Long Island to go see her tomorrow morning. Awesome. She also just texted me, "What time is your flight getting here?"
Yeah,
nice
kind of thing. So for the 80 podcasters at Draft Professor, for Bob, for EJ, my name's Jim. We're signing off. We'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow. Daily draft content. Thank you to all of the people that were in the chat. I saw Dalton from Home Squad Sports, another draft professor, and it looks like several people came over from Steelers Sanctuary as well. So, Bob, Thank you for linking your feed to this. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow.
Talk to you soon.